Get many comments and statements about what does astrology have to do with the Bible. Contrary to what most people think that they know, astrology is actually interwoven throughout the Bible, from the Old Testament, especially in the Old Testament, to the New Testament. In this video, I'm going to cover biblical astrology. And I feel like this could possibly be a series, but I'm not quite sure. So just stay tuned for that. And you can check the article out at our website at www.fd1111ministries.org. Hey you guys, this is Ashley for FD1111 Ministries, where we help people ascend and connect to their divine purpose by using the modalities of tarot, Bible, and alchemy. Biblical astrology. Yeah, that is pretty much of a taboo subject. Traditionally speaking, since the translation of the biblical text from native Hebrew, Greek, and Aramaic to English in the Middle Ages, astrology was deemed as evil. Surprisingly, the practice of astronomy, astrology, and various forms of divination were practiced in the temples. First, let's cover what astrology is. Astrology is under the realms of astronomy, and astronomy is a science that's been deemed by the scientific community as a literal science. And astronomy is the study of the astros under the bracket of alchemy. And alchemy is where we get chemistry from, as well as pharmacy and pharmaceuticals. Under the realms of astronomy is astrology, which is the observation of the cycles in the cosmos and the applied science to all life in general. The delicate balance of the astral light bodies project amounts of light frequencies that work in tandem. These light frequencies reach the earth, and according to each individual's natal chart, will directly work through them and hopefully with them as they continue to master their energy. So there is a big difference in the way how it's commonly projected, especially in the Western culture. So many think that astrology is a divination tool instead of a literal science, and commonly used as a vice instead of a powerful way to know thyself and master thyself. Does the Bible really condemn astrology? In short, the biblical text, the Bible, both supports and condemns astrology. So let me explain. In various forms of divination, however, there is one exception, which I will go over, and it pertains to high priests. Deuteronomy 4:19. And when you look up to the sky and see the sun, all of the heavenly array, do not be enticed to bow down and to worship them. This is one of the most popular scriptures that I see people use to try to say that the Bible does not support astrology. Actually, this scripture does not say anything about the practice, the science of astrology. Astrology, in its purest form, is not worshiping anything. It's pointing out the cycles of the celestials. No different than we notice, which you see this throughout the biblical text, of the rising of the sun and the going down of the same. As the moon, as the stars, all of this stuff is just natural observations. Astrology is not worshiping the astros or cosmic bodies. It's commonly known as a created source, not the source itself. And like anything else, it's up to the person how balanced they are in the utilization of any tool. Astrology is a tool, just the same as divination, which I have a playlist on that if you want to check that out. In the previous verses, it mentions about making graven images of people and animals, etc. Here, one can point out the zodiac, or the Mazzaroth, which is the Hebrew word for the zodiac. Contains animals and symbols of animals. These are much like ancient alphabetical glyphs. These are only to represent the universal energies and symbolism of that zodiac house. So when you go around the zodiac wheel, and at one point there was only 10 of them, just like there was only 10 months, but however, through the evolution of the whole practice, that now there's 12 months and there's also 12 houses in the zodiac wheel. Each one of them comes with a symbol, and with that, it's just speaking of the energy. One thing that people must take into account is that when you are studying the text or you are getting into astrology, that this is an ancient practice that revolves around the culture. So you have to know a little bit of the culture context, such as the Aleph, the Hebrew A, is that of an ox, the ox being the head, the ox being the beginning, the first. The 12 tribes are also the 12 aspects of the zodiac wheel. Just a little bit of history here. How I was saying before with the zodiac, how they had 10 signs at first. Initially there were 10 tribes, and later came 2 other tribes because of the fact that Jacob had 10 sons at first, and then finally he had 2 sons afterwards. Not to get into too much detail, this is important about how the way they are divided up, because even astrologically this has meaning. Now, getting back to the point, the highlighted commandments were given to the 11 tribes of the 12 tribes. There's only one tribe that has the authority for divine divination and the rights to go into the Holy of Holies, which are the tribe of Levi, which I like to call the tribe of Aaron, because Aaron technically was the first high priest. I can go into this even further, but I feel like this sums up with divination altogether, because each one of the tribes had different jobs, which I will get into further on in this video about how they're divided up. Now, even if you aren't into like the whole tribe thing, and it's important to understand, especially if you feel like you want to get into astrology, but however you feel like some tug, some pull because of what you were taught. That's why I go into the history. Plus I like history anyway. So it's important to know that the high priests, that they were the ones that had the ordainment to do divination. Now take this to our modern day world, that certain people, they use it as a crutch. That's why you do have certain gifted individuals, or ordained more so, to do certain tasks. And the high priests are those, and the remnant of the high priest, which I went over a video that will have all these videos listed in the description box as well as on the screen periodically. And this deals with the history of light workers, the 144, through the different diasporas that these tribes were broken up, and that included the high priest. So some of them, to integrate into the places that they were taking refuge in, they had to blend in with that culture. So some of them would take on and mix the practices, or I would like to say evolve the practices. This is where you have like shamans, different names, alchemists. They all come from the ones that are like innately called, they come from this remnant. Now let's get into a little bit more about the symbology. Holy days, and the holy can be taken 2 different ways. Holy as far as consecrated days, and these consecrated days have purposes because they align with certain astrological events. And holy, like holidays, like how we say in the Western world, holidays, holly is being jubilous, is joy. So when these holy days come around, that one should be holly, because that is a high frequency to really work with these different portals. So these holidays celebrated in the biblical text are astrologically based. One that really sticks out is Christ Mass. It's the Mass of Christ, and the Mass is like a holy ceremony. Speaking of Christ Mass, the day is centered around the winter solstice, December 21st. During this time frame, the brightest star, Sirius, aka the Mother Mary, some call it the dog star, births Christ. This is all very symbolic. So that star is the Mother Mary that births Christ. Star Sirius is twice the size of our sun, and astrologically Christ represents the sun, our sun in the center of our solar system. Well, another great example is Easter, aka Resurrection Sunday. Sun as far as S-U-N, or sun as far as S-O-N, day. This day celebrates the resurrection of the sun, both symbolically of the sun in the solar system and the sun S-O-N. The first Sunday of the ecclesiastical full moon that occurs on or closest to the spring equinox. Okay, so think about that. So the Resurrection Sunday, Easter, everybody knows about Easter, and Easter doesn't have a set date. It lines up with this specific full moon, okay? And this is documented in the biblical text. This is where we move from the Old Testament to the New Testament. As a side note, the equinoxes are either the birth of the sun or the death of the sun. During the spring, it is the birth. That's where new life comes forth. That's where the resurrection of the sun happens. And this is where we start to get into longer days out of the year. During the fall is the fall of the sun. This is where we get into longer days of the year. This equinox also represents the cross, where you have a literal cross that represents the equinox, equally masculine and equally feminine, meeting together, spring being feminine and fall being masculine, as the sun will die in winter and rise again in spring. Why does this holy day revolve around the full moon? Rosh Hashanah is another holy day that's centered around moon activity, in this case the new moon. Biblical astrology going further into this. All right, so we are moving into the Mazzaroth. You can peruse the different months of the year, which each one of them from Aries to Pisces, and then you have the Hebrew name for each one of these, and then the months. And one thing I wanted to point out is that Nissan, I'm pretty sure you recognize that name. It is a car brand. That is Aries. So remember what I told you about in ancient times, the beginning of the year started in spring in Aries season. Aries is the ram that pushes forward the higher ups. They will really start their beginning of the year in Aries, and they have the rest of at least the rest of the Western world, starting their year in the cold, in the winter, in January, when they start their year, and they finish their year coming around in the winter time. Then they have already gotten a head start. And using that Aries energy, the Aries is like a conqueror, is an emperor, is a someone that pushes forward. You also see in the Old Testament a lot of references made to horned animals. And this is a symbolic reference of some type of other energy, which deserves its own decoding when we get into like the biblical studies. Mazzaroth, 12 signs or constellations, is mentioned in the book of Job in relation to several astrological bodies such as Orion in other texts and planets. Another popular source of biblical astrological evidence is the account of Ezekiel's wheel. From this vision is where the 10th tarot card came from, the Wheel of Fortune. Ezekiel 1:20-21. In this chapter, it entails the description of a four-headed beast, a lion for Leo, a bull for Taurus, a man for Aquarius, and an eagle for Scorpio. All these creatures have been mentioned primarily in the Old Testament as some form of sacrifice to Yahweh, the Hebrew God. Now, this same vision came through in the New Testament in Acts 10:9-16, as the Apostle Paul had the very similar vision of these four beasts. Now, what are these four beasts? There are four categories, four different types of energies. The four beasts and the zodiacs are also the following: four archangels, which are Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel. Four corners of heaven, north, south, east, and west. Four apostles, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The four categories of the 12 tribes: the priests, the praisers, the protectors, and the possessioners. Once again, these are very vast topics that deserves their own studies. So I guess you will have to stay tuned, because really there is a lot more to cover, such as the different captivities and the diasporas that help to shape the ideology, theology, and the spiritual practices surrounding biblical astrology, divination, and many of the texts that deserves more attention, so people can really know the true intent behind these sacred texts. If you agree and would like to learn more, make sure that you do subscribe. You can also leave comments, including questions and any suggestions or any information that could help us all, really. You can check out the playlist, the Biblical Strategies Toolkit, that I have a couple different videos in there. I'm looking to grow this library to be a resource for people that want to seek additional information surrounding the biblical text and a lot of the sacred knowledge. One of those videos includes the Paradise Method. The Paradise Method is a method that you can drop into any text. Visit our website at www.fd1111ministries.org. If you do enjoy oracle cards, we have our very first oracle deck, the Ascended Bible Divine Guidance cards. That link is also down below. And I will catch you guys on the next video. All right, peace.